So let's get started. I'm going to use the Micromeasurement CSM Degreaser as the first step to degrease the beam. It could have a little bit of oil on it, maybe just some surface contamination, and the first step in prepping the surface is to degrease. So I'll just take the cap off the CSM and I'll take one of these gauze sponges, and I like to take it and fold it, and then fold it in half again and spray that directly into the gauze pad. And then I'll just take it and wipe along the top surface of the beam and under, or on the underside, and kind of clean the edges and just basically just give it a good thorough degreasing. Once I've done that, I'll take that and discard it. The very next step is going to be to dry braid the surface of the beam. So we're going to use two different types of silicon carbide paper. I've got a 320 grit that I'm going to start with first. You'll notice it's a wet or dry sandpaper. Very typical for like wet or dry sandpaper that you'd use for like prepping the surface of a car for paint. We like to use 320 grit as a beginning point on this aluminum, and then we'll follow it up with a 400 grit, and that'll leave about the right surface finish on this piece of aluminum to get a good bond with our adhesive. So I'm going to start with the 320. I'll just take it out, open it up. I'll take a piece that's about 1.5 inches long. I'll take the rest of it, put it back inside of that. And I like to take it and fold it in half like that so you have a little friction for your finger. And then the gauge installation on this beam, there's a little tick mark on the side. The gauge is going to be installed about 2 inches away. Actually, both gauges are going to be installed about 2 inches away from this end of the beam. And down here is going to be the load point. And we can tell that because we've got a little tick mark that tells us. So I'll just abrade back and forth, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 strokes. And then once I've done that, the very next step, I'll discard that piece. The very next step is going to be to do a wet abrade. And with the wet abrade, I'm going to use a 320 grit paper as well, but this time I'm going to combine it with the red tip bottle, the Imprep conditioner. So what I'll do is take the conditioner, I'll open it up, put a few drops on the surface, close it back up, and then take another piece of this silicon carbide paper and again fold it. Put the rest of it back inside the little packet. And then I'll abrade back and forth. Again, about 8 to 10 strokes. What you're trying to do is lift off contamination, and you're also trying to introduce a uniform texture. We want some texture for that adhesive to be able to bite to it. Now, once I've done that, I'll take another gauze pad, and this time I'm going to dry up what's left on the surface of the beam. So I'll take it and start inside the cleaned area. Use a single wipe. You'll notice I picked up quite a bit of contamination off the surface. I'll take it and I'll refold it to a clean side, start inside that cleaned area, and go the opposite direction. So right now we're making progress. So we've introduced the 320 grit paper, we've done a dry braid, we've done a wet braid. The next step is going to try to get that surface finish a little bit smoother, and that's where we're going to use the 400 grit wet or dry sandpaper. So what I'm going to do is just take my scissors and just cut one end of that open. I'll close it, take that, throw it away. And again, I like to tear it at the fold. That's about the right length of paper. I'll tear that, take the rest of it, close it back up, put it back inside of that vinyl packet so I can find it later. And then I'll take another few drops of the conditioner. And again, the 400 grit paper. And then I braid back and forth. I'm going a little slower just because it's in the camera, but I braid back and forth about 8 to 10 strokes. And then once you've done that, again, take another piece of the gauze pads inside the cleaned area using a single wipe, and then take it and refold it, start at the same spot, and go in the opposite direction. Now at this point you'll notice that some of the paper's gotten wet, so what I'm going to do is discard the top couple of sheets of paper, just so I'm going to work on a cleaner surface or a drier surface for the next few steps. And really the next step for us is to introduce a line so that we can position the strain gauge. And aluminum is soft enough that we can introduce a line using a 4H drafting pencil. Most folks don't draft these days by hand, but back in the old days folks used paper drafting, or they used paper drafting techniques in these types of pencils. 4H, it's going to have a harder lead in it, although it's not lead anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this beam and look to the side and transfer the marks on the side up to the top surface, just like that. Okay? And then once I do that, I'm going to take a straight edge. I'm going to lay that right across this area. I'll take the pencil and I'll press down firm, and I'm trying to burnish a line right in the area where I want the strain gauges to be installed. Just like that. Now once I've done that, I also want to create a line down here where the load is going to be positioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to transfer, you can see these tick marks on the side of that beam as well. I'll just transfer them up with the drafting pencil, and then this time I'm going to use a dental pick to scribe these lines. Actually, it's just going to be a line. So I'll take it and I'll scribe it just like that, so that we can accurately position the weight. Now once you've gotten to this point, you're ready to continue cleaning. We need to get all the graphite and wax off the beam, so we'll use some more conditioner. I'll take it and just kind of flood it around that. And then I'm going to use these cotton tip applicators. These are basically Q-tips with a wooden handle. And to open them up, I'll take the scissors. I'll just open it at the handle end. Take that, throw that away. And then take one of these cotton tip applicators, and then I'll scrub it. And you want to scrub right along the axis of the line first, because you're trying to minimize how much of the graphite and wax and whatever else is in there flows along the surface of the beam that you're trying to clean. And as one side starts to come up with some of that contamination, then just take it and roll it around to a clean side, and then scrub that area. Sometimes you'll find you'll have to use two of them, so I'll throw that one away and grab another one. And the cotton tips have a tendency to absorb quite a bit of moisture, so sometimes you got to add a little bit more conditioner. Take that, close it, and then scrub that surface. And you should be able to scrub this until this cotton tip comes up just about clean. You're using an etchant, so most of the time it'll have a little bit of a grayish tint to it. Once you're happy with that, take another gauze pad, fold it, take it and refold it, or a clean side, and then go in the opposite direction. And then the last step to get this beam ready is going to be to scrub it with the Imprep neutralizer. This is an ammonia-based solution. The conditioner is a very mild phosphoric acid. It helps to chemically etch, and it also drops the pH. And some of these adhesives, in particular the one that we're going to use this morning, which is Imbond 200, is a cyanoacrylate. And cyanoacrylates do not like to stick to a surface that has a low pH. So if you introduce a conditioner, you've got to introduce the neutralizer. So before I do that, I'm going to clean off my work surface again, make sure we're working on a drier sheet, or at least in a drier section on the piece of paper, what I'm going to do is slide it down here and take the neutralizer, a couple of drops, close it up, and then take the cotton tip applicator and give it a good scrub. And you can see now it's coming up nice and clean. If your tips come up contaminated at this point, you probably missed a step somewhere in the process. So give it a good scrub, and then again, another gauze pad, take it and fold it. Start inside the cleaned area, single wipe through the target, then take it and refold it. Start inside that cleaned area and go the other direction. And at this point, this beam is ready for bonding.